Witches and Prose podcast. My name is Haley Camarillo, author of Fury and Flame, book 1 of the Witching Hour series, which will be out this October. Today I have with me author Shelley D Hiers. Thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. How are you doing
I'm
today?
so awesome. So you have your YA fantasy debut novel that is out right now. It is called Her Purpose, which I have right there, a beautiful, lovely copy. It is so gorgeous.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about it.
So Her Purpose is a coming of age young adult fantasy, but it is great for all ages. I have a lot of adults tend to read YA too, which I think is fantastic. I'm kind of one of those people. It's a book 1 in a 5-book series, and then that series is called the Starlit Trine Chronicles. And so the story starts off as a little girl, and it's tradition for her people in her village to actually leave when she's of age to go out in the world and actually experience it for the first time, and to really try to find her purpose. And once she goes out and she kind of finds her calling in life, then it's tradition to come back into her village. And they have this big celebration, and they actually have a ceremony called Celebrating Their Names Day. And that's when they can actually select their name, and they can, it's kind of like a coming of age type rite. And so they select their own name. And so that means that they're a contributing member of their village. So the story starts off where the little girl is leaving to go on her wander. That's what it's called, a wander.
Yeah.
And she just leaves her village and she goes over the meadow, and she sees this very large black shaggy dog. And as little kids do, they say, hi dog. Even I say hi to every dog I meet. So,
Yes.
and the dog actually speaks and talks back to her. And this is her first foray into realizing that the world that she's about to experience is unlike things that she has ever seen before or ever, experienced before. And so Dog says, you could go and follow the steps of your forefathers and go on this journey in order to find your purpose, or you can select a different path. And you can go on this journey and find this wise mystic called Tyr the Mins, and he can certainly help you find your purpose. And so the book is about her journey trying to locate this mystical Tyr, and the characters that she meets along the way, and her knowing as much as she knows about the world, she also finds out more about herself along the way as well. So it's fantasy. It's written in more of a fairy tale style, lots of whimsy. So it's kind of like that in a nutshell.
Awesome. That sounds so fun. I cannot wait to read it. So what inspired Her Purpose?
So I kind of had 2 goals setting out when I first wanted to write it. The first one was that I wanted it to feel timeless. I wanted it when somebody read it, you couldn't tell if it was written 50 years ago or 50 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want it to tarnish with age. And so that was one goal. My second goal is that I wanted it to evolve as you were growing up. So as if you're a younger kid, you can read it, or a teenager, you can read it and take everything at face value. But as you grow up and become an adult, and if you get nostalgic and want to read that book that you read as a child, there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of hidden meaning, and there's a lot of kind of threads of life lessons in there that you can relate to. And so I wanted something that you can this book can be with you for your whole life. In terms of the actual how I got started with this one, is that probably about 5 years ago, I was kind of having this existential crisis in my early 30s, and it was kind of weird, but I felt like with my career and everything, that there really wasn't a way for me to go climb a ladder. I felt very stuck in my position, and that was really killing my creativity. And so I forced myself to write just something once a week. And I just to say that I did it, I just threw it up on Facebook. It wasn't like for notoriety or anything because it was quite terrible. And then my mother saw it and she absolutely loved it. And she's like, "You need to keep doing this." And I'm like, "Mom, it's awful." I go, it's not even edited. It says a grill trying to find her purpose, not a girl. Like, it was awful." And so, I got, as time goes on, I did write more snippets, but as time goes on, you kind of lose track of projects.
Yeah.
And fortunately, about a year ago, my mom started having health problems. And so I wanted to think about doing something to cheer her up. And I wanted to do something fantastic because she's a fantastic person. And so I used the terrible Facebook search function and found all those snippets of the story that I started with, and I cobbled them together, and that was the start of her purpose. So
I absolutely love that.
yeah, so that's how it started.
That's such a beautiful beginning for it. I love how like heartfelt that is. That's so amazing. So have you always been a storyteller? Have you always been a writer, or when did this really spark?
So my parents were very clever when I was growing up. And as when you're a kid and you go to anywhere, you always want a toy, you always want candy, you always want something. And they would always tell me no. But the thing that they would always say yes for me was a book. If I wanted a book, they would never tell me no.
Mhm.
And so I ended up growing up with more books and toys because I was like, oh, I can get something. And so
Yeah.
I always wanted a book. And so I actually did a lot of poetry when I was younger. I entered in competitions. I always did really well. Poetry
Mhm.
was kind of my thing. And then it kind of, as I got older, it kind of expanded more towards stories. And I had a very good friend, very dear friend. And when I was in my 20s, he's like, "You should do NaNoWriMo." And at first I said, "God bless you," and Gesundheit, because I had no idea what that was. And
Right?
for those who don't know, it's you write a 50,000 word novel in the month of November. And I was like, heck yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a terrible fantasy romance. It was awful, but I did it, and that was great. And so every year for NaNoWriMo, I would write a different genre. And then I would spend the rest of the year kind of expanding it. And, I would edit it, and then I would read it, I would print it out, I'd stick it in a shoebox and shove it underneath my bed, never to see the light of day again.
Uh-huh.
Because the publishing was just really getting to me. And so I had two mutual friends, one was published and one wasn't. And we were all sitting on my kitchenette table because one wanted information on how to get published.
Yeah.
And they one of them looks at me and she's like, "Well, when are you going to publish?" And I'm like, "Never. I'm never publishing. No way."
Mhm.
And, and they very sweetly, with combined effort, shoved me off that cliff. And so they were the ones that really kind of took my hand. And I went from "I'm never publishing ever" to Her Purpose being published within 13 months. So it was fast, for a first like debut novel.
Yeah.
And actually now I just made the realization just talking about this, it seems like my writing journey always had a cornerstone of people that I love and care about. So that's really great that I can combine something that I'm really passionate about with people that I really care about. So I'm glad that I talked about that because I literally just made that connection. But yeah, so that's kind of my writing journey.
That is so amazing. I love that. That's awesome that you have so many people in your corner to
Very much
there
so.
and be supportive for you. It's so important with this whole process.
Very much so, because you do put a little bit of heart and soul between these pages, and imposter syndrome is a thing.
Yes.
So we need to have those people, we need to have those cheerleaders to get us over there so that we can share that with people. So yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, so let's see. Let's dive a little bit into the book, and can you tell us if is there any sort of romance, since it is a YA novel?
It is. So in terms of like opening that door, I have it open about 2 inches. Coming of age, you do have to explore themes of love and under, and going through those feelings as when you're a teenager and everything. And so there's like little smatterings of things that could be, since this is a series.
Yeah.
I have no idea where that's going to go, but the potential is there. Yeah, I mean the foundation is laid, but whether or not, I don't want it to feel forced.
Yeah.
I don't. So I'll figure out what the characters tell me what they want to do, and then I'll go with that in the end. But there is potential.
Awesome. That's really cool. So let's see. What is your writing process like? Are you more of a pantser, more of a plotter?
I'm 100% a pantser. I sit down to write, and I have sometimes, I think it's in a way kind of a strength, because my head and my hands will like put down words on a page, but I haven't really emotionally caught up to them yet. And so sometimes I feel like I'm experiencing emotions that a reader would for the first reading it for the first time, because I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. And there's one particularly harrowing moment when the little girl is going into this place called Morns Grove. And of course, you don't go into Morns Grove. And there's a very climactic scene, and I was like getting into it, and I was like writing, words were flowing, things were going great. And I finished that scene with a very pivotal moment, and I just stopped, because I was like, number one, I couldn't believe I wrote it, and I had to really think about if I really wanted to commit to this, because it was pretty jarring. And I stopped writing for the day, because I had to really think about it. And so I kept it. I don't have any regrets, but if people are going to talk to me about her purpose, they're going to mention this particular scene without giving away spoilers. And so that it's an adventure. Every time I sit down to write, it's an adventure, because I don't know what's going to happen.
I think that's the best though. I'm a little bit more in between. I like plot out big moments.
Planter.
Yeah, I'm a little planter, but I love that feeling of like you're experiencing it with characters. That's one of the most fulfilling bits of writing for me is
absolutely it's the wonders of writing. It's great.
Exactly. All right, so can you tell us what your biggest struggle with her purpose was?
So kind of the biggest struggle is number one, just being a new author, understanding the ins and outs of publishing, because writing the book, in my opinion, is the easiest thing you do when you publish a book. I am rather introverted, and so I'm going to say outside in terms of doing all the social media, doing all the contacts, going on podcasts, things like that are I mean, that's a little intimidating. I think in terms of actual writing, since I am a pantser, writing a series is kind of daunting, because I do have to plan some things. Like there are things that happen in the first book, and I have a loose idea of them not coming back until like the third or fourth book. So having these great epic stories that span through several books for me personally is kind of daunting. But with every word, I'll get there eventually. But that's probably the hardest thing that I have to overcome.
No, that totally makes sense. It is. I feel like even being a little bit more of a plotter, it's very hard trying to like make sure that all the webs that you've woven get attached by the end of it. It's a daunting process. And then
it is. I think of it kind of more in my head. It's more like a tapestry of story. You want all the threads to come together to form a big giant masterpiece, hopefully. So it's good. It's great in terms of just making me a better writer, but it is pretty taxing to make sure that I have no plot holes. So
yes. Plot holes are the bane of all of our existence. So.
Definitely.
Let's see. Do you have a favorite character, supporting or main? I know that all of us love our mains. So,
Yes. Um, I'm gonna split this if that's okay.
no,
So
absolutely.
I'm gonna break the rules a little bit. So, my favorite character to write
Mhm.
is Tyr the Mins.
Okay.
And I love writing him because he's so he's an intellectual.
Mhm.
He's so kind of pompous. He's very kind of removed from society. He cares about humanity as a whole, but I don't know if he necessarily cares about like people, except unless they fit some very, very specific criteria. And he's actually able to form this connection with the little girl because the little girl is after the pursuit of knowledge and for learning about herself and everything. And he that's something he can latch on to, and so he can form a connection with those types of people. In my head, he's kind of like if Doctor Strange from Marvel and Severus Snape had a love child. If
Okay.
you can imagine that, that's kind of, or don't imagine it. Like, well, I mean, or do if that's your thing. It's all good. But it's he's kind of has that type of personality where he comes off as being very scholarly, very kind of distant, kind of like the grumpy cat in the corner type guy, but he does have a sense of well-being for everybody. It's just he just expresses it in a different way. In terms of my favorite character in the story, it does have to be Dog. I think everybody needs a dog in their life. Dog is kind of the little girl's mentor. He's very wise. He's very otherworldly. Um, but he's very blunt and he doesn't pull a lot of punches.
Okay.
And so he's one of those people that would be like, you know what, that's a really dumb idea, but I'm going to support you in this. Let's do it. I mean, he's
I
he's
love
one
it.
of those guys. And so and there are some moments of tension, between the two, but at the end of the day, he lets her stand on her own 2 feet, but he's also there for her. And so he's very, very much woven into like their fates are woven together, I guess. And so I think everybody needs a dog in their life. So
Aw,
yeah,
I love
so
that.
he's my favorite.
That's cool. Super exciting. Okay, and do you have a favorite scene or a favorite line that you share
um,
with us?
yeah, I'm gonna have to paraphrase a little bit, but it's kind of a line that whenever I was writing, I was writing as much for myself as I was writing for, my potential audience. And it was after the little girl got into this scrape with this not to get spoilers, but there's a really strange band of outcasts in the forest named the Marked Ones, and we go more into their story in book 2. And she came out of the forest and she was like, whoa, that was crazy, whatever happened. And Dog was there, and she's like, well, what are you doing here, and he's like, well, I was in the neighborhood, chilling out. And he's like, well, why didn't you come and help me? Like, I was so scared.
Mhm.
And he says, like, fear doesn't harm you. It should motivate you. For every possibility lies just on the other side of it. He's like, you wanted your freedom, and so you overcame your fear to get it. And so that's kind of something that I kind of take to heart. And so that's, Dog is kind of more of a fortune cookie type character where he says like the things that you would get
The
at the end of the
vibe.
yeah. And so yeah, that's probably one of my favorite scenes because he wasn't there for her per se because he knew that she would be just fine because
Um,
she had the ability to do that. So
yeah.
that was good.
That's very awesome. I like that. That's a very powerful like scene. I,
Yes,
I like that. And I like the message that it sends. It's very important. I think
definitely. All about self-agency and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
that. Okay, and so you're working right now on book 2. Do we
Yes.
have any prospective
So how the series is laid out is that each book focuses on a different main character. The other characters are still going to be in the book, but it's going to change spotlights, so it's not always about the little girl.
Okay.
So book 2 is called Hope's Sacrifice, and it's about the leader of the marked ones, whose name is Hope, and it's more about the mystery that surrounds them, because everyone has a part to play in the overarching story. So I am in the first draft right now, but I do have an editor appointment, so I do have a deadline. But
Good then.
if everything goes well, then we're looking at like April 2023.
Very
So
exciting.
yeah. So I'm hoping Hope's Sacrifice will come out then. So
Awesome.
that's
Love
fingers
the
crossed.
name, by the way, too.
Oh,
Awesome.
thank you.
So, well, awesome. Thank you so much for being on with me today, for going over all these
Absolutely.
questions and chatting. I had so much fun talking about this.
Sure.
And you guys, thank you so much for watching the Witches and Prose podcast. We will see you next time.
Bye.